If you're planning a trip, listen up, because the FBI is warning travelers that sexual assaults on airplanes are on the rise. One victim who was violated in flight is speaking to us in hopes that telling her horrifying story will prevent a similar situation from happening to others.
I was on my way to Uganda for work, and during the flight from Seattle to Amsterdam, as I was falling asleep, the man next to me grabbed my crotch multiple times as I fended him off, and I escaped.
Alison Devaladze was traumatized first by the assault.
There was a period of shock in which I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how this should be addressed.
And then by the airline's response.
It wasn't until after this happened to me that I actually reached out to the airline to see how they were following up, and I was shocked to find out there was no follow-up. They basically handled it as if it were lost luggage.
The airline offered Alison 10,000 Sky Miles as what it called a small token in hopes of easing some of the frustration and inconvenience you may have felt.
That was added insult to injury.
It's an injury that can have very real consequences once back on solid ground.
It's so frightening that a place that is supposed to be safe and a confined space can be so dangerous potentially, can have major ramifications for a person's mental health if they are a victim of sexual assault.
According to the FBI, there has been a 65% increase in cases of sexual assault on airplanes, an alarming statistic, especially because
we know that less than half of the people who are assaulted actually do speak up about it.
By speaking out, Alison hopes to help end the stigma around sexual assaults and make sure the airlines take a more serious approach to the crimes happening at altitude.
And I think far too often people are actually getting away with this offense. So making sure that people are held accountable is important. No airline can prevent this from happening, but just as they have messages about no smoking, wearing your seatbelt, there's messaging they could put in place to help deter this and make people more aware.
Another step in creating safer skies?
Flight attendants really need to have sensitivity and crisis intervention training. They need to realize that sexual assault is very damaging psychologically. It's also a federal offense to sexually assault a person on an airplane. There needs to be emotional or psychological first aid.
That first aid would have been appreciated by Devaladze, who still suffers from the in-flight trauma.
It's definitely harder for me to sleep on flights. I'm very aware of my surroundings. I always have had a lot of situational awareness. It just wasn't something I anticipated on a flight.
Dr. Sue Varma says that these sexual assaults occur more frequently on red-eye or overnight flights, and if the victim is sitting in the middle or window seat, and if there is alcohol involved.